It was a cold, quiet night when I stood outside, gazing at the vast expanse of the sky. The stars shone brightly, scattered across the canvas of darkness like diamonds, each one seemingly pulsing with energy. I stood there, mesmerized, feeling both small and incredibly connected to the universe. It was during moments like these that the questions started to arise, questions I could never quite shake off. Where does this universe come from? Why is it expanding? How does everything fit together in such perfect harmony? I walked away from the stars, but those questions stayed with me. I pulled out a small notebook I always carried with me, a place to jot down thoughts, verses, and reflections. I flipped through the pages until I found what I was looking for. There, right in front of me, was a verse I had come across earlier that day. "And the heaven we constructed with strength, and indeed we are its expander." I read the words again, each syllable resonating with the quiet that surrounded me. Expanding universe. The Qur'an had spoken of the universe expanding long before the Hubble telescope, long before the scientific community even began to grasp the concept. How could a book written over 1400 years ago, in a time when the nature of the universe was still unknown, describe something so profound? I couldn't help but feel awe at the thought. Was it possible that the Qur'an was not only a book of spiritual guidance, but a treasure trove of wisdom about the world and universe we live in? What if the secrets of the universe were embedded in its verses, just waiting to be uncovered by the minds of those who sought to understand? I had to know more. I started reading everything I could about the expanding universe. I learned that the universe wasn't just expanding, it was accelerating. The galaxies were moving away from each other faster than ever, a phenomenon scientists call cosmic inflation. The more I read, the more I realized that the universe's expansion was not some random event. It was a continuous process unfolding before our eyes, just as the Qur'an described. How could this be? How could a book, centuries old, describe a scientific reality that only now, in the 21st century, was being proven through technology and observation? I began to understand. The Qur'an wasn't merely talking about physical phenomena, but about a divine design, a grand plan that could not have been understood in its entirety until this moment in time. The revelation filled me with wonder. The universe, with all its mysteries, was not random. It had a purpose, a structure, a design, and Allah, the creator of all things, had woven this grand plan into the very fabric of the cosmos. This realization was a profound shift in my understanding of the world. I began to reflect on other aspects of creation that had always fascinated me. One day, while walking through my garden, I noticed the way the bees were moving, so diligently, so purposefully. Their wings hummed as they flew from flower to flower, collecting nectar, spreading pollen, and ensuring the survival of plants. It seemed so simple, yet when I thought about it, it was a perfect example of divine wisdom in action. The Qur'an spoke of the bee too, and your Lord inspired to the bee, "Take for yourself among the mountains houses and among the trees, and in which they construct." I marveled at how the Qur'an not only mentioned bees, but how it described their purpose, the exact role they play in nature, a role that sustains entire ecosystems. I had learned that bees don't just work. They follow a perfect plan, guided by instinct. Every movement, every action they take is part of a divine system that ensures the survival of life on Earth. How could such wisdom have been known centuries ago? The more I pondered, the more I realized that everything in the natural world was intertwined in a beautiful, intricate system. The way the bees pollinate flowers, how plants grow in perfect harmony with the seasons, how the grains ripen in the fields, all of it was part of a divine order. It wasn't just chance, it wasn't random. There was design behind it all. I began to understand that the Qur'an's references to nature weren't just metaphors or symbolic language. They were practical, real-world examples of how Allah's creation works, each piece playing its part in a grand design. The bees, the plants, the trees, they all had roles that fit into a larger picture, and everything they did was guided by the Creator's will. As I continued my journey of discovery, I found myself reflecting on another verse, this one about the heart. Indeed, it is not the eyes that are blind, but the hearts which are in the breasts that are blind. At first, I couldn't quite understand how the Qur'an could describe the heart in such a way. How could something as physical as the heart be blind? But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. The heart, in the Quranic sense, wasn't just the organ that pumped blood through our veins. It was the seat of understanding, of belief, of perception. The eyes could see the world, but it was the heart that interpreted it. The heart could be blind to truth just as easily as it could be open to it. As I reflected on this, I thought about the way our emotions, our thoughts, and our actions are all connected to the heart. Science had shown me how the heart worked, how it regulated our bodily systems, how it was central to life itself. But the Qur'an went deeper, speaking to the heart as the center of understanding. The heart was where we recognized truth, where our faith lived. Without a clear heart, we could never fully comprehend the world around us, no matter how much we saw with our eyes. I began to see the connection between the physical and spiritual heart. The Qur'an was teaching us that the heart was more than just an organ. It was a symbol of our connection to the divine, to the truth. When our hearts were open, we could see the signs of Allah in everything, from the smallest grain of rice to the vastness of the universe. But when our hearts were closed, we could see nothing, no matter how clear the truth was right in front of us. That evening, as I sat outside once more, this time with my heart open and my mind clear, I felt a deep sense of peace. The stars above seemed to speak to me, and in that moment I understood. The universe, the bees, the plants, the heart, they were all connected. They were all part of a larger divine plan, a plan that was described not just in science but in the Qur'an, a book that held the key to understanding the world and our place in it. I had started this journey seeking knowledge, but what I found was something far greater, a connection to the divine wisdom of Allah woven through every element of creation. And I realized that the Qur'an wasn't just a guide to understanding the universe. It was a guide to understanding myself, my purpose, and my place in the grand design. As I stood there reflecting on the harmony of creation, my mind turned to the smallest of creatures, the bees. These tiny insects had always fascinated me, but it wasn't until I started looking at them through the lens of faith and science that I began to truly appreciate their divine role in the world. One afternoon, I sat in my garden, the warm breeze rustling through the leaves of the trees. I watched the bees, their wings a blur of motion as they danced from flower to flower. There was something mesmerizing about their work. Every movement seemed purposeful, every turn a calculated part of the process. They weren't just flying aimlessly. They had a mission. They were gathering nectar, spreading pollen, and playing a vital role in the survival of the plants around them. Without them, entire ecosystems would collapse. It was a delicate balance, one that was sustained by the smallest of creatures. It was then that I recalled the verse from the Qur'an I had read months earlier. "And your Lord inspired to the bee, take for yourself among the mountains houses and among the trees, and in which they construct." I marveled at how the Qur'an had mentioned the bee, this humble little creature, so many centuries ago. It wasn't just a casual reference, it was a divine message, a reminder of the intricate systems that sustain life. The Qur'an spoke not only of the bee's physical actions, but their divine guidance, the instinct that drives them to pollinate flowers and ensure the survival of plants. As I dug deeper, I learned that the bees were more than just workers. They were part of an intelligent, coordinated system. The female bees were the ones that worked, and they followed a carefully constructed hierarchy. The drones had one purpose: to mate with the queen. But the queen herself, the heart of the hive, was the linchpin. Without her, there would be no future, no new generations of bees to continue the cycle. The intricate design of the hive, the division of labor, the way each bee played its role, all of it was a testament to divine wisdom. I found myself filled with awe once again. How could the Quran have described the bee's role in nature so accurately, so perfectly? It was as if the verses were written with the knowledge of what science would one day uncover. The bees didn't just play a role in nature by chance. They were part of a divine design that had been set into motion long ago, a design that ensured the balance of life on Earth. Every bee, every flower, every plant was part of an interconnected system, a system that only Allah, the Creator, could have orchestrated. The more I thought about the Quran's insight into the world around me, the more I began to see how everything, from the smallest creature to the vast expanse of the universe, was connected by a divine thread. It was as if the Quran had already anticipated the discoveries that science would one day make, and each new discovery only deepened my faith, reminding me that Allah's knowledge was infinite, beyond anything human minds could fully grasp. In that moment, I understood that the Quran wasn't just a book of religious guidance. It was a book that contained the secrets of the universe, the blueprint of creation. And we, as humans, were not separate from this design. We were part of it. We too had been created with purpose, with a role to play in the grand system of existence. Began to reflect on another part of creation, the heart. It wasn't just the physical organ inside me that beat in my chest. The heart, in the Quranic sense, was something deeper, something more profound. The Quran spoke of the heart as the seat of understanding, the place where belief resided, the core of our perception of the world. It was through the heart that we recognized truth, that we saw the signs of Allah in everything around us. Indeed, it is not the eyes that are blind, but the hearts which are in the breasts that are blind. At first, I didn't fully grasp the meaning of this verse. How could the heart be blind? Surely it was the eyes that saw, that perceived the world. But the more I thought about it, the clearer the message became. The heart was not just the organ that pumped blood. It was the center of our being, the place where we truly understood the world. Without a clear heart, we could not see the truth, no matter how much we looked with our eyes. I began to understand that the Quran was speaking of a different kind of blindness, a spiritual blindness. The eyes might be able to see, but it was the heart that recognized the deeper truths of the universe. It was through the heart that we saw Allah's signs in the world around us, in the bees, the trees, the stars, and the oceans. Without a pure heart, these signs would remain invisible to us. I thought of how the Quran described the hearts of the believers, how their hearts were guided by Allah's light, how they found peace and tranquility in His remembrance. And I realized that the more I opened my heart to the divine wisdom of the Quran, the more I began to see the world differently. The heart became the lens through which I saw the universe, not just as a series of random events, but as a perfectly orchestrated system of divine design. As I continued my journey, I thought of all the ways that science and faith were intertwined, how they complemented each other. Science had shown me the mechanisms behind the natural world, the way the universe expanded, the way the bees worked, the way the heart beat. But the Quran had already known all of this. It had already revealed the deeper truths of creation, the underlying wisdom behind the laws of nature. In that quiet moment as I sat in my garden, watching the bees and feeling the gentle rhythm of my own heartbeat, I realized that science and faith were not two separate paths. They were one and the same, leading to the same ultimate truth. The universe, the creatures that inhabited it, and even our own hearts, they were all part of Allah's divine design. And the Qur'an, in its infinite wisdom, had captured these truths long before science had uncovered them. I realized, too, that this journey wasn't just about discovering the wonders of the universe or uncovering the secrets of creation. It was about deepening my connection to the Creator, understanding His wisdom, and recognizing my own place in this grand design. The more I learned, the more I saw that everything, from the smallest grain of pollen to the vast expanse of the cosmos, was part of a greater whole, a divine plan that only Allah could have orchestrated. And so I continued my journey, not just of discovery, but of reflection and faith. With each new insight, my heart grew more open, more aware of the beauty and wisdom that surrounded me. The Quran was not just a book of guidance. It was a mirror that reflected the wonders of creation, a reminder of the divine truth that lay at the heart of everything. As I continued my exploration of the Quranic wisdom, I found myself thinking more and more about the ocean, a vast, mysterious world beneath the surface that has always captivated humanity. Growing up, I had always been fascinated by the sea. Its depth, its endless horizons, its power. It was a realm of both beauty and danger. But it wasn't until I started reading the Qur'an through the lens of modern science that I realized how much it had already spoken about the oceans, long before human beings had the tools to explore them. One evening, as the waves crashed against the shore, I reflected on a verse that had always caught my attention. And He it is who has set for you the sea, that you may eat of its fresh meat, and that you may extract from it ornaments which you wear. And you see the ships plowing through it, that you may seek of His bounty, and that you may be grateful. The verse spoke about the bounty of the sea, the food, the pearls, the resources. But what struck me even more was how the Qur'an spoke of the sea as a powerful force that was essential to human survival and prosperity. For centuries, the oceans had provided sustenance, trade routes, and exploration opportunities. But what the Quran described in this verse wasn't just the visible, tangible aspects of the sea. It spoke of something deeper, the interconnection of all life, the ways in which the oceans played a role in the survival of humanity, and even the way the sea mirrored the vastness of Allah's power. I thought back to the first time I saw the ocean up close. Standing on the edge of the shore, I could feel the power of the water beneath me. The waves surged relentlessly, but there was a rhythm to it, a cyclical pattern that seemed almost alive. The deeper I went into my research, the more I discovered about the mysteries of the ocean, how it regulated the Earth's climate, how it housed more than 90% of the planet's biodiversity, and how it was a key component in the global ecosystem. Science had discovered that the ocean was not just a body of water. It was a complex, interconnected system with its own rhythms, its own cycles. The ocean absorbed heat from the sun, distributed nutrients, and even helped regulate the planet's weather patterns. The more I learned, the more I saw the wisdom behind the Quran's reference to the sea. It wasn't just a natural resource, it was a vital part of a delicate balance that sustained life on Earth. But it wasn't just the ocean's visible power that caught my attention. I started to read more about the depths of the sea, the parts of it that were still unexplored, and the incredible creatures that lived in the abyss. I learned about the deep sea trenches, the black, uncharted waters where light never reached. These regions of the ocean, so deep that they were beyond human reach, were the home of creatures that could survive in extreme conditions. They lived in pitch darkness, at crushing pressures, and at temperatures near freezing. It was a world of extremes, a world so alien that it seemed almost like another planet. And yet, in all this darkness, life flourished. The creatures of the deep sea had adapted in ways that defied imagination. They had evolved to live in an environment where no sunlight reached, relying on chemical energy rather than the sun's warmth. It was a perfect example of Allah's design, life existing where it seemed impossible. It was as if the Qur'an had already spoken of this mysterious, unseen world, this realm that only the Creator could understand fully, or the one who is like the darkness within a deep sea, which is covered by waves, above which are waves, above which are clouds, layers of darkness, some of them upon others. This verse, when I read it, felt like an incredible description of the ocean's depths, the layers of darkness, the depths that science had only begun to explore. How could the Qur'an have known about this deep, mysterious world? How could it have spoken of something that had been hidden from humanity for so long? It was a divine revelation, a reminder that Allah's knowledge far surpassed human understanding. I began to think about how the deep sea was like the depths of the human soul. Just as the ocean had its hidden mysteries, so too did the human heart. There were parts of us that remained hidden, layers of emotions, desires and fears that could only be uncovered by the light of Allah's guidance. The Qur'an had always spoken about the heart as a symbol of understanding, but it wasn't just the physical heart that was important. It was the spiritual heart, the place where we stored our deepest emotions, our secret thoughts, and our capacity for faith. As I sat by the ocean that evening, listening to the sound of the waves crashing against the rocks, I realized that the Qur'an's message about the ocean was not just about the physical sea. It was about the hidden depths of creation, the parts of the universe and our own souls that were beyond our reach, but not beyond Allah's knowledge. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how every part of creation mirrored the divine wisdom of the Creator. The oceans, with all their mysteries and unseen wonders, were just one example of how Allah's knowledge was beyond human comprehension. The sea had always been a symbol of power and mystery, but now, with my deeper understanding, it also became a symbol of faith. Just as the sea held its secrets beneath the surface, so too did the Qur'an, holding deep spiritual truths beneath its verses. And just as we had to venture into the depths of the ocean to uncover its mysteries, so too did we need to dive deep into the Qur'an to uncover the treasures of wisdom and guidance it held. I thought about how science had allowed humanity to explore the ocean, to understand its currents and creatures. But even with all the technology in the world, there were still parts of the sea we had never reached, still mysteries that lay beneath the surface. Similarly, the Qur'an had always been there, waiting for us to explore its depths, to uncover the wisdom that Allah had hidden within it. And as I sat there gazing out at the ocean, I felt a profound sense of connection, not just to the natural world, but to the Creator who had made it all. The sea, the stars, the bees, and the very heart that beat in my chest were all part of a grand design, a divine system that had been set in motion by Allah's will. And I realized that just as the ocean held its mysteries beneath the waves, so too did the Qur'an hold its mysteries beneath its words, waiting for us to discover them, to learn from them, and to grow closer to the Creator. As the days passed, my journey of exploration became more than just an academic pursuit. It was a spiritual awakening, a realization that the Qur'an was not merely a book of guidance for the soul, but a guide to the entire universe. Everything around me, from the smallest insect to the most distant star, was a sign of Allah's wisdom, and the Qur'an was the key to unlocking these mysteries. It was late one evening when I found myself sitting in the quiet of my room, pondering the words of the Qur'an. I'd learned so much, not just about the universe, but about myself, my place in this grand design. The more I explored, the more I realized how interconnected everything was. The bees, the oceans, the stars, the very heart that beat within. Midad, they all shared one common thread. They were part of Allah's creation, and they were all governed by a divine wisdom that was beyond human comprehension. The verse that had first sparked my journey, "And the heaven we constructed with strength, and indeed we are its expander," echoed in my mind. The expanding universe, the vast cosmos that stretched beyond what my eyes could see, was a manifestation of Allah's power. It wasn't just a random event. It was a deliberate act of creation, unfolding according to a divine plan. And this plan, this grand design, was reflected in everything around me. I thought about the ocean once again and how it held its secrets deep beneath the surface. The sea, with its uncharted depths and hidden mysteries, seemed to reflect the inner world of the human heart. Just as the ocean had layers that could not be seen, so too did the Qur'an hold layers of meaning, waiting to be uncovered by those who sought knowledge. The Qur'an was like the ocean, deep, vast, and full of mysteries. But unlike the ocean, the Qur'an was a book that not only revealed the physical world, but also the spiritual world, guiding us toward the truth and closer to the Creator. Thought of the way science had peeled back the layers of the natural world, revealing the mechanisms behind the universe. From the expanding universe to the depth of the oceans, science had helped uncover the divine signs embedded in creation. But science could only take me so far. It could show me the how, the physical processes that governed the natural world. But it was the Qur'an that showed me the why, the divine purpose behind it all. It was the Qur'an that opened my heart to the deeper truths of existence, to the wisdom of Allah that lay behind the laws of nature. And as I reflected on this, I realized that the true miracle of the Qur'an was not just in its ability to describe the physical world, but in its ability to transform the heart. The more I immersed myself in its verses, the more I felt my heart open, my understanding deepening. The Qur'an wasn't just a book of knowledge, it was a book that changed you, that helped you see the world through a new lens. It helped me see the signs of Allah everywhere, in the stars, in the oceans, in the smallest creatures, and in the very beat of my heart. It was clear now that the Qur'an was not just a relic of the past. It was a living book, full of wisdom that could guide humanity through the ages. The knowledge it contained was not confined to the 7th century. It was timeless. The more I studied, the more I saw how the verses of the Qur'an connected with the latest discoveries in science. It was as if the Qur'an had anticipated these discoveries, revealing truths that would only be understood centuries later. The expanding universe, the creation of life, the intricacies of nature, all of it had been described in the Qur'an long before human beings had the tools to uncover it. But beyond the science, the Qur'an spoke to something deeper, something more profound. It spoke to the heart, to the soul. It was a book of healing, a book of guidance, a book that reminded us of our Creator and our purpose in this world. As I continued my studies, I began to see the Qur'an not just as a book of knowledge, but as a roadmap to spiritual enlightenment. The more I reflected on its verses, the more I felt a deep connection to Allah, a sense of peace that came from knowing that everything in this world, from the stars to the sea, was part of His grand design. And as I sat there, contemplating all that I had learned, I realized that the journey was far from over. The more I discovered, the more I realized how much there was still to learn. The Qur'an was a treasure trove of knowledge, a guide to the mysteries of the universe and the mysteries of the heart. And as long as I continued to seek knowledge, to reflect on its verses, I would continue to uncover new layers of meaning, new insights into the divine wisdom of Allah. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the Qur'an, for the guidance it had provided, for the knowledge it had revealed. Gratitude for the universe, for the signs of Allah's power and wisdom that surrounded me. And gratitude for the opportunity to be part of this grand design, to play my small role in the larger tapestry of creation. I realized that the Qur'an was not just a book to be read. It was a book to be lived. It was a guide to understanding the world, to understanding ourselves, and to understanding the Creator. And as I continued my journey, I knew that the more I embraced the teachings of the Qur'an, the more I would come to understand the truth of existence and the divine wisdom that lay behind all of creation. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a mind open to the mysteries of the universe, I stepped forward on my journey, a journey of faith, of discovery, and of a deeper connection to the Creator. The more I learned, the more I realized that the Qur'an was not just a book of miracles. It was a living, breathing testament to the power and wisdom of Allah, guiding us toward the ultimate truth.